you're listening to KXCR 90.7 FM on the Oregon coast. And now, Spiritual Unity Today, and I'm your host, Larry Bloomfield, showing that we're all flowers in one garden and how closely we are alike. Join me now and my guest to see how all of our paths are unique in their own way. Hello and welcome to Spiritual Unity Today, where we hope to show that even though we all have our own path, we're all part of the same tapestry. So today, I have James Hientz. James has been a friend of mine for a very long time and has had a wonderful spiritual path that I'd hope that he could share with all of us. James, welcome to the studio here today.
Thank you.
I appreciate you coming in.
Pleasure.
All right. Well, today I thought what we would do is start off with talking a little bit about yourself and give our listeners an idea of how you got started in life and how you got on your spiritual path and how you got here today.
I was raised in the Yakima Valley of Washington State, and there I was a good little Catholic boy attending a Catholic cathedral school, and I got a wonderful gift from Catholicism, and that was a powerful love of God. As I grew older, became a teenager, I became disillusioned. I think my young man eyes saw that the world was full of folks that were beautiful and wonderful, and oh my, they weren't Catholics. And I was being taught at the time that they were going to crash and burn, and I just that was hard for me to swallow. So I wandered off into kind of a typical place where young men go, and that is some form of being agnostic or too smart to even wonder about God. And so I did that and continued that until I was about 23, and I had a daughter. And it was extremely important to me to give her some kind of framework to grow up in that taught her to love God as I had been taught. And so I began a search. I stuck my nose into just about every faith I could find, and often would serve as Christian teacher and all that type of thing. A lot of children's classes. I seemed to be drawn to working with young people. For me, I stumbled on the Baha'i faith, and it, more than anything else I had bumped into, took into consideration everybody on the planet and gave everybody the freedom to comfortably move about and actually celebrate their spiritual paths. So that was the beginning of I'm 74 now, so 23, 74, gosh, do the math. It's been a couple of years, yeah. And my spiritual path has been wonderful for me, but above and beyond everything else it's done for me is put me in a situation to have open and active conversations with folks that have done their spiritual path differently than me. And I can sit back and at the end of a discussion with somebody like that say, I need to adjust. I'm going to adjust my thinking a little bit because I just learned something that really touched my heart and I didn't have it before. And sometimes it comes from the teachings of the Baha'i faith and sometimes it comes from somewhere else. And for me, that just keeps it vibrant and keeps me alive. And I think as much as anything else, when you're a young dad and you have problems with wanting to be the best parent you can possibly be, and you wonder, am I doing this right? I think about my own father. I mean, he loved me with every fiber of his being, and yet the belt hung in the furnace room. and when I misbehaved, which seemed to be often, I'd be on the wrong end of the strap. And this man that loved me so much believed that spare the rod, spoil the child.
Yes.
He did not spare the rod. But in my belief now is that the soul of a child recoils when it's struck. And so my kids never felt my hand angrily strike their body. And I'm glad about that. I think that's a good move.
It's something to get to. I know in my life I have similar circumstances. But now, when you were young, you said that you felt that you had that spiritual feeling inside of you, the calling of God or whatnot. What do you think brought you into that? Was that family, or do you feel that there was a certain texture or something that was grabbing you?
I think it's really important for folks to give their children a religious upbringing. I think almost any spiritual upbringing is good because, in my mind, we need to know that there's something more than ourselves, that we're part of something really great, and that we need to attend to it. And just even within ourselves, I mean, to kind of have some understanding who I am as a spiritual being. Do I have responsibilities? What are those responsibilities? How do I benefit?
Can you tell us a little bit about that? Do you feel you have a certain amount of responsibilities? And how do they tie in? Is the unity aspect of this show is to show that basically, even though we all have our own path, we're all part of the same tapestry.
I really agree with that. People are quick to grab a hold of what they want to call truth. Mm-hmm. And once they grab it, they tend to believe that truth is for everybody. I don't believe that. Mm-hmm. I believe that your spiritual path can be very different than mine and still do a wonderful job of taking you to where you're supposed to go. Mm-hmm. I think the biggest thing for me in my life is, I think our culture is very monetary. We're very worried about money and things and all of this. And I think we're off track. I think the really big thing is that we have a responsibility to love and care and support each other. Mm-hmm. And that if I do a good job of loving on you, then you'll do a good job of loving on me, mm-hmm. and then we'll go down this path together, and we'll both be really happy. And everybody knows when you do a kindness, mm-hmm. the kickback is almost immediate and far more rewarding than it is to get monetary things, I believe.
Now, your spiritual path over your time has grown, and I've seen you through the years always being bigger than life in a sense when it comes to spiritualism, and I think that that's wonderful. And you've even grown since then. You've done many things throughout your life. Can you educate us on some of the things that you've done to make spiritualism a connection between all people around you?
Well, thanks for the compliment.
Well, just so our listeners know, James has done at his house on Monday nights a open house type of event. Once at time, it was called Soups On, and then it's changed as his age has gotten a little older, and that's a lot of soup to be making for a lot of people when they show up. Now it's a spirituality. It's a little easier to make, I guess, tea. But you've been doing this for 20 years?
20 years.
That's a lot of time. Yeah. Wow.
I'm a big fan of making commitments to, evaluating myself and how I'm doing in my relationship with God. And one of the commitments I made was to devote that Monday night every week to being of service to God and in this way. And it started out, actually, we had something that we call a fireside. And I'd run a little ad in the paper, and people would come, and we would talk specifically about the Baha'i faith. And that was wonderful. And I felt like, we really had something sensational to share, and that mankind would benefit so much from it. And I believe that today with every fiber of my being. I felt I had found the truth. And I had. Specifically for me, I had found something that fit me like a glove, and I loved it. Okay, Monday nights. It evolved into what we called Soups On, and I had this kettle that was commercial and huge, and I was, you can put $50-$60 into a kettle of soup, Yeah. Our home is just a little residential home, and sometimes we'd have as much as 30 folks showing up. Yeah. And I would make sourdough bread, and it was great fun. I was famous for my clam chowder. It was fun. As a matter of fact, when we I had a relationship with some really lovely Persians, and they would talk about the soups that they had when they lived in Iran. I went to a store in Portland and bought Persian spices and so forth. So I'd cook up these big, beautiful Persian soups, and my Iranian friends would say, "No, this doesn't taste Persian, James. I think maybe Morocco or somewhere like that." You know, I never got it right. I never got it right.
A little off.
Just a little off, yeah. But I tried really hard. But that what it has become now is. 15, 20 people show up every week. And it changes. There's probably a base of maybe 80 folks that just keep rolling through, come when they can. We talk about everything. And some of the ground rules, it's really very simple. Some of the ground rules are that, as I said before, truth isn't in place. In the Baha'i faith, Baha'u'llah, the founder of the faith, said that this is an era of multiple realities. So that means that you and I can be standing side by side with different thoughts about a certain thing. And in fact, in capital letters, we can both be in possession of our version of the truth.
Yeah.
And I think even when you go down the road and you fantasize mankind evolving to the point that we've really become spiritual critters and we're striving to serve and love and care for each other, the diversity is going to be a huge part of it.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's the greatest challenge for us as critters, is to figure out how we can have our belief and in a very loving way stand side by side with somebody else that doesn't do it quite the same way we do, and applaud them. Good for you. I mean, what a beautiful path you're on. And then they do the same thing to you. They turn to you and say, "I never thought about it that way before." And then you can see them take ownership of it. Well, I don't think that's a goal. I think that's a process. I think that's how I fantasize mankind becoming years to come, is us just celebrating being
The
spiritual
diversity.
beings on this planet together and trying to figure out what it's going to take to do what we're supposed to be doing while we're here. Yeah.
During those Monday nights that you have, you said you speak about all kinds of topics. Can you give my listeners an idea of the reasoning that you came up with these topics, whatever they might be?
They're all kind of spiritual in origin, but it's hard not to be spiritual when you're talking about things, because I think the gig is a spiritual gig. We are, we're not supposed to be here making money. We're supposed to be here making beautiful things happen between people.
Yeah.
And I think we get way off that track. We talk about, there's all kinds of things that are kind of people wonder about. People wonder about Islam. They wonder about Zoroastrianism and ancient religions that existed long before ancient empires existed. What happened when man evolved to the point that he could have a relationship with God? And we talk about, what is your understanding of the soul? What is your understanding of the spirit? What is your understanding of us? What's our responsibility to our body? Because our body is housing our spiritual essence. And, is it okay for us to abuse and misuse it? A lot of opinions on that, particularly from those that love candy. But so if you can dream it up, the topic, we've talked about it at some time or other. Music, art. I'm an artist. I paint a lot. I love it.
You do. I've seen your art. It's nice, too. You do a good job.
Thank you. I try. It's a wonderful thing in retirement to...
Do you think your spiritualism gets into your art?
I would like to think my spiritualism gets into everything.
Yes.
And so sometimes I'll actually paint things that are full of symbolism that is significant to me. And but most of my artwork is capturing something about Old Town Florence down on the harbor, the boats, the sails, whatever you can find there. And
there's always something nostalgic to look at, let alone paint. Yeah,
yeah, and that's wonderful. It's, but
can you give our listeners a particular topic that may have come across your time that you've done all these events that may have really stood out?
I think there's more controversy around reincarnation than anything. And I have found that if you were to take the topic of reincarnation and make it a crystal that is composed of all the different views of it and all the different teachings around it and so forth, you really don't have to turn it around too much. Change a few words, change a few different looks at it, and it gets to be pretty doggone similar to what everybody else has. It, I personally believe that we go through this earthly part of our lives once. And during this time through, we have many opportunities to draw closer to God. And some folks exercise those opportunities. Some folks don't. Some folks reap the benefits of it all. Some folks don't. And then we go into another world. I think there's a biblical quote that says something like, "In my Father's house there are many mansions," and I believe that we are in a mansion at this time. And then when we have accomplished as much as we are going to accomplish while we're here, then we open a door and walk into another world of existence, and it's an unknowable world. I've heard wonderful things said, like a baby in a womb, has a good feeling for where it's at and how it's going, and but the womb is not being in the world in the way it's going to be in the world for most of its existence. So after birth, here's this little baby learning how to exist and function in this world, and that's going to go on for all of its life. And we are all the same in that. And so back to the reincarnation part of it, I don't see any merit in backing up and doing it again. I think in the next worlds we'll have opportunities to address other things but I don't know what that's all about. I'm looking forward to it. I don't have a fear of death.
Yes, matter of fact, you even made your own coffin, which is kind of interesting.
I did. Yeah, I don't know what that's all about. I made myself and my wife our own coffins. The neighborhood they were kind of smiling in here as they'd walk by my garage, and there I'd be in there standing away on a coffin.
It's uniquely painted, too. You're not talking about your average metal or wood-looking coffin. It's made of wood, but you uniquely painted it also.
Well, and I shaped it like, when they have these movies of people being buried in Europe. They're wider at the shoulder, come back in, rather than a box. It's got that shape.
Old Western look to it in a way, right?
Yeah, and my favorite flower is black-eyed Susans. And so I painted it with kind of a deep mossy green base and then big black-eyed Susans all over it. Very, very floral, very pretty. And then my wife, she swears she's half mermaid, and Suzanne, and she is. I painted a big mermaid on hers with this big, lovely tail. She loves it, and it was fun. I'll have to admit, though, that when I was finished making those coffins, there's
weird feeling about it?
I don't know if the word is weird. I just, I have no qualms about moving into the next world, and yet I don't want to occupy my thinking with being a dead guy. I'm still working on that, I guess.
Yeah. You're still here.
I'm still here. I certainly am. I'm with you.
Exactly.
Someday you may be carrying that homemade coffin, and I hope the bottom stays in it.
I hope you made it well enough.
Yeah, right.
Well, it certainly looks nice from an outside view. I've never seen quite anything like that, and I don't know that I could make my own. I don't know that it's morbid or anything. It just is an odd feeling. You kind of open a door to that next position of the process, and I don't know that if I really wanted to go there quite yet. Has it done anything odd to you like that, or?
Well, I was glad to wrap them up in big black tarps and put them in my storage shed out back, and there they'll sit until my son or my daughter drag them out to use them.
Yeah.
But I have kind of lived my life sticking my head into emotional arenas that are a little difficult for me, with the hope that I get some growth out of it.
Well, you were also a police officer at one time, too.
My father said I come from a long line of people that make fairly poor employees because we're so enchanted with our own processing, And I think that's true. I mean, my son, my grandson, we are as we are. Ask me another question.
Okay. Okay. Let's say out of the people that you've met in your life, who do you think has brought you closer to your spiritualism, or at least gave you some direction in your path?
Sometimes the spiritual pearls of wisdom come to me from really interesting places. I have a friend that thinks having a relationship with God is the greatest waste of time that anybody can have. But he's a servant. He's out there feeding people. He gives produce from his garden away to everybody. I mean, he is just a wonderful human being in 1,001 ways, and yet his spiritual path is nothing like mine. And it would be easy for me to say, "Oh, sad," that such a great guy isn't going to have the spiritual benefits of everything that he's doing, and yet I believe he is.
Yeah.
I believe he's good stuff, and it's not
Well,
my job to judge him.
Yeah, I find it interesting how, we put a label on something and call us whatever, and that has a tendency to come with direction or something. And not always does somebody have a label that they want to put on themselves or something like that. They just simply are walking down that path, and that's their connection itself. In that sense, you're saying that you have actually found a great deal of spiritualism in people who didn't say they felt like they had spiritualism. Is that what you're saying?
That's pretty much what I'm saying. I mean, we, for our betterment or not, we like to box things up.
Yeah.
And say, look at my beautiful box. Isn't it wonderful? Don't you want to jump in my box? And I really don't think that's the way to go. I mean, if somebody wants to jump in your box, we'll open up the lid and let them jump in. That's fine.
Yeah.
But to believe that all the other boxes are not of value is a real mistake. And I'm not sure. Even get around to something as simple as, let's talk about God. What do you do with that? Who is God? He, she, it, them, wonderful energy. It's a flash of light. It's a beam of sunshine. I mean, nobody knows.
Yeah,
I don't think anybody knows.
Yeah.
And so we're using our definitions of it. We're just using it to try and have a greater understanding, and yet every spiritual teaching that I've ever read, and I'm no scholar, but I've read a lot, and it says that you don't get to know. What you're supposed to do is strive to understand God, strive, but you're not going to get there. And I think that is very humbling, because I don't get to run around and say, I've arrived.
Yeah.
Hey, be I cool? Yes. No. It's and that makes me, I think, much more open to listening to your thoughts.
Yeah.
And that's, as we started out, that's kind of where I find that some of my greatest gifts lie are in the some people, religious experiences that they've had with organized religion aren't wonderful.
Yeah.
So as they mature, they may want to have a relationship with something more than themselves, God, whatever. But the minute you start putting structure around it, you get into trouble. I had a friend that I often went to church with, just because I enjoyed her company, and and it was a Foursquare church, and just the gathering was wonderful. The people were joyous, and it was a phenomenally loving and embracing experience to go to church there on Sunday. And then you would maybe stay after for a study class. Well, when you started dropping down into the rules and regulations that particular religion has, then you started stepping away from each other. And so you either say, oh, yeah, I believe that, or no, that doesn't work for me. Well, if your feeling is, no, that doesn't work for me, then what are your options? Well, you have to stay at that level. You don't get to go deeper. I don't know. I don't think that's the way it's supposed to be. And I think much of the stuff that in Baha'i, it teaches that if religion is ever the source of disunity, it would be better that it not be. So when we look at all the spiritual paths all over the world and realize that mankind has just draped them with embellishments, many of them with the best of intent, the very best of intent, but they often are barriers between people's being able to follow that spiritual path. Yeah. And for me, I just don't want those barriers to exist. If I share some of the teachings of the Baha'i faith with you that I'm particularly enchanted with, I would like you to not feel that this is something that's being forced upon you, but rather that this is something Abdu'l-Baha used to say before he would teach you anything. He would say, and it's so respectful, he would say, give consideration to this. And then share a thought, share a spiritual thought. And how how easy it is to listen to another spiritual thought if your path is respect.
That's a beautiful way to end this. Thank you so much for coming in to studios today and speaking with me. This has been Larry Bloomfield with James Hientz speaking on Spiritual Unity Today. Thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Spiritual Unity Today on KXCR 90.7 FM, your Florence radio. I would like to thank my listeners and my guests for joining me, Larry Bloomfield, on Spiritual Unity Today, where our goal is to show, even though we all have our own path, they all lead to one humanity.
Unite and bind together the hearts. Unite and bind together.
Hope you have enjoyed this show. Spiritual Unity Today is underwritten by the Baha'i Faith of Florence.